Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hello and welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Katie Miller in the host seat today, and I am here with my friends Danielle.
Oh, hey, it's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
And Josh.
Josh Benson, rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
And we are so lucky to have two friends of the pod, two former guests in the virtual studio with us. Welcome to Jacob Deaton and Barron Ryan.
Hey.
Happy to be here.
All right, so for listeners who don't know you two, can you each introduce yourselves?
Sure. I am Barron Ryan, a pianist and composer in whose music classic meets cool. And I also am a duo pianist with my father as Ryan and Ryan piano duo.
Nice. My name is Jacob Deaton from Atlanta, Georgia. I am the agent for the Georgia Players Guild, largely tribute-based agency out of Atlanta. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, happy to have you both back in the studio with us today. It's good to see your faces and hear your voices. So let's get into it. Now, we all know that the best industry conversations happen after showcases, over adult beverages, when we're talking about sort of PD, discussing our days, talking about what we've seen, and talking about what is on our minds. But we are still 4 months from conference season. So we thought we would gather some of our friends and have a little bit of that conversation today. So there are a lot of things to be worried about, I would say, in the least, in our industry right now. Some are pretty obvious and some are not so obvious. So we want to start with Barron and Jacob. What is on your minds and what about the industry is keeping you up at night right now?
What keeps me up at night is myself, because I have this idea of who I want to be. I see great artists, like I look at Rachmaninoff or Oscar Peterson, these great musicians, and I think I want to have a career like them or some compilation of my favorite artists. When what I'm doing is really just coming up with an idea of who I should be and not who I'm serving. Because really the point of music is to serve the people you're listening to, which is not devoid of what I'm good at, but it also takes in mind what they need and what they're looking for. And while I may love Sergei Rachmaninoff, I'm not him, and it's not 100 years ago when he was alive. So I should be looking at things that I don't want to do. Like I don't want to spend 3 hours in a day making a TikTok out of what I'm doing right. I'm rewriting the Severance theme to make it sound like it's not a dystopian nightmare, which actually has turned out to be pretty fun. But if you were to say that to me 3 days ago, I might have said, I'd rather be working on something else. But where is the audience? What do they need from me? And how can I reach them? And if I were less concerned about what I wanted out of my music, then I would have an easier time sleeping.
Now, historically, like what we call creators today, but composers like Rachmaninoff, were they thinking about their audience as much at that time?
I don't know.
I think the context of creation today, from an artistic standpoint, with such a focus for so many, and myself included as a mural artist, such a focus on who you're creating for and your audience as it is, because audience is so easily defined today through metrics and through followers and through responses to social media. How much is our creation actually being focused more outwardly than inwardly on how we're creating based off of serving followers or serving our communities, or how we're looking at doing it versus how it was 100 years ago when those metrics weren't alive?
Yeah. And I don't think that the answer is that I shouldn't think about what I would like to do at all. But there's a balance, I believe. And certainly in my case, the balance is, what do I want to do? And then we'll figure out who will want to listen to it. And I do that at the sake of those who might be listening. And you're right. There are lots of people. I mean, you can. It's not like everybody's going to listen, and you have to pick some segment of people who are out there who might be interested in what you're doing. But for me, the balance is way more often in the what do I want my work, my output to be, and less on who it could serve.
So many of the pieces that I've done are commissioned, and so I'm working within a set of parameters of what the client wants and how it's going to serve the community that they serve, and yet still having my own style be a part of that, and adapting their needs, their wants, the client's wishes, the community's appeal into a way that it fits within my style of work, to where I'm serving the things that they want to check off, but I'm also serving myself from an artistic standpoint.
Barron, do you look at those metrics? Like, do you have any kind of metrics that you use?
Yeah, nothing too macro. I look at when I get likes and shares and followers and that sort of thing.
Right.
But in terms of larger demographics, I don't usually.
I also find that creativity thrives within parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Having a couple of things to fit what you're creating into opens you up from a creative standpoint.
Jacob, this is for you too, but do you, as an artist, guitar player, Barron, Jacob, do you feel like it's more difficult to create work now than it was 10 or 15 years ago, or find yourself in that creative space?
My life has changed. My life was a lot simpler 20 years ago than it is now. The older I get, the more complicated it gets, And I think that's something that we don't often talk about, really, truthfully, is that the reason why there's a golden era of people putting out records and songs and creative works within a period of time. Usually if you go back and look at Bob Dylan's work, you look at Rolling Stone's work, I mean, they were putting out 2 to 3 albums a year in some cases. And that's because their life wasn't as complicated as it gets later on in life. And I'm not saying that, life is the ultimate constraint to creativity, but I'm saying that it plays a part, and so if you're not cognizant of the window in which that you're in, you could lose a moment that is relatively golden, in my opinion. And if you can, I mean, that's not speculation. That's really more fact than anything else. You can go back and look at the greatest artists that we've had in the last 50 years, and you will find a period of time. Think about the Beatles. Think about how many albums they put out, and then go look at how long they were actually a band. It wasn't like that they were a band for 40 years. I mean, it was like a decade plus, and that was it. Yeah. I think, I mean, so sorry if I'm slightly off, but it's not that long.
Yeah. Are you talking about an artist's own life gets more complicated over time, or that?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
or
life
that
in
the
general,
world, or that the world becomes more complicated for all artists over a period of time, or maybe both?
I mean, I'm saying that you as an individual in the human life, as you get older, deal with more things than you do when you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you're 20 years old, you're willing to let a whole lot of things go by that you're not so willing to do when you're 40 and 45 and 50 years old. Life is a lot simpler in your mind. If you think back, what were you doing at 20 years old versus now, and
I'm not saying that on it.
Thank you.
But these are the things that I think about, the people that did it the best. So often we don't even know who these artists are because they never had the platform or they never met the right person or whatever like that. But the ones that we do know that did it the best, people like Bob Dylan can define a generation with just a stroke of a pen. It's pretty amazing.
Barron, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like Josh was talking about constraints and, creativity within constraints. I know we've talked about that before. So how does life feel to you? And is that part of the struggle that you're talking about? What you want versus what your audience needs?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it, is that I agree with Jacob that as you get older, life becomes more complicated. It's also, there's when I think about Josh asking, well, did Rachmaninoff, what was his focus back then? For one, we don't know, but I have an idea of how it applies to me. I have no idea what his mental struggles were with these other artists' mental struggles. So it would be pointless for me to even know what other people were doing because they're not living my life and I'm not living theirs. So it's okay. What are my constraints and how do I operate within those? It's hard. It's hard. Mm-hmm. But we all deal with it in one way or another. There's no template. Nobody else has lived your life yet. You're the only one who can do it. So sometimes it's difficult to know which way you should turn in any situation.
And I honestly believe, Barron, that your own choice to that, whichever way you're supposed to turn, is the way you're supposed to turn.
Be it so.
I mean, you can look at like what's trending, and you can look at like what's in vogue, and you can look at all those metrics and come up with something that will make sense. And I'm not saying that those approaches are wrong. I'm just saying the one that is ultimately the most right for you is the one that you choose. Now, whether you adapt some of the more 21st century quote unquote methods in getting your message out, that's 100% up to you. I think a lot of people would advise for it these days. I mean, the content machine is real and the algorithm is real. And if you choose to take advantage of those things, and that's a beautiful thing, or could be a beautiful thing, it might also not be who you are. Whereas I think everybody tends to want to push people in a direction of you have to feed the machine these days. And there is obvious benefits to this. Great art, it should not be constrained by an invention such as, social media and stuff like that. You should just seek to create the absolute best art at the frequency in which that you can do, and be okay with the outcome. And in my opinion, that is the way to a psychologically more healthy life as an artist, is that the more you pull away from the things that people tell you to do, and the more you do what's inside of you, then when you lay your head at the end of your life and you're done, and you look at the body of work that you created, I think that you'll be a lot more happier about that outcome versus being influenced by anybody else that's outside of your own mind and your own heart.
Beautiful.
So.
Well, there we go. Now I can sleep.
And I'd also like to point out that Jacob, in addition to having the agency, is also a guitar player and is also a singer-songwriter with his own albums out.
So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, this theater artist over here has absolutely no time to do anything creative. So I am jealous that the two of you have any time to do anything creative, period, whatsoever. But I will say, I was working on a project the other day, and Barron, I had your music on Spotify. Sorry.
No, great.
And,
however it works.
Your commission project came on, and I just sort of like found myself stopping and listening to it, and just stopping everything I was doing and just taking a moment and really truly listening to your commission piece, There Rises Light. And I just stopped and really took a moment to listen to it. I felt so at peace. Like, it comes out of a really difficult place, but the work is so beautiful. So I think even if you don't have time for your own creativity, taking time to experience and enjoy and pause and enjoy other people's and find value in it, I think is a way that we can feed ourselves, even if we don't have tons and tons of time to do it ourselves.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Let's, I think, take a right-hand turn. Jacob, I know there's some things on your mind. So what is keeping you up at night, my friend?
Yeah, whereas Barron's was very more artistic driven, mine were more like 20,000 feet, artistic arts world driven. One of them was one that we like to talk about and everybody likes to, have meetings about, but never really ever fix, which is block booking. The other topic that I had was sort of just a general observation on, the arts in general and kind of where we sit with, the abilities versus the demands of the marketplace. So which one should I go down first?
Well, as a former Presenters Consortium president, I want to hear your solution to the block booking conundrum, personally, myself.
Yeah, I don't think you can bring like block booking into something without, one, just creating feelings, and two, just like get to the end.
So
you brought it here. You finished.
I mean, I've been thinking about this for as long as I've been in the industry, and I heard the term block booking and I was like, what is that? And, for those out there that want to know what that is and don't know what that is, there's a routed tour and there's a block tour. The routed tour is when the agent leads it. The block tour is when the presenters lead it. And that's probably the most simplest definition I think I can give. In the idea of a block book, just for perspective, presenters are supposed to speak to each other, decide they want a particular artist, go to the agent or the artist, and then say, we have all of these dates in common. We would like to work out a deal for all of those dates, ideally at a lower price than the one-off fee, which then allows them to get a deal. And it also gives the artist the idea that they get 4 or 5 shows in a row within a reasonable driving distance from each other. I just want to make sure that everybody understands like what that is.
And some of the time there can be a larger entity that can anchor the block.
Yes.
They can full price because of what they serve, and then allow for the smaller venues to come on at a lower pricing because it works out better for the block. That is a system that speaks to the like ecosystem of presenters and how presenters can potentially support each other.
100%. The way the financials get broken up really is a case by case basis. But generally speaking, that's one way that I find that is a fantastic way to do it. That said, I've been thinking a lot about it for a long time, and I've gone to tons of state consortium annual meetings where they talk about things like, is block booking dead? Or you go to a conference, an arts conference like APAP or whatever, and there's always somebody talking about it. And yet people talk about it and nobody ever does anything about it. And so I'm kind of one of these people that can't stand that. And so it's been really on my mind now for the entire course of my artistic life in this world. I finally kind of came up with like a sketching of what I think would solve it. And I'm going to fire it off here and everybody can pick it apart. And then I'll say, you're probably right. And then we'll move on. But this is my solution. And I don't know that I'm the first person to come up with this, but I'm going to just say what I think. So here it is. I believe that every state consortium that's interested in block booking should have a block booking concierge. That meaning a person that is sole job is to create blocks. You, as presenters, have never been more busy in your life. You don't have as much money to run your facilities. You don't have as many people to help doing those things. So you end up doing 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. Therefore, there's no alpha in the room to lead the blocks. Some state consortiums like North Carolina have a quote blockhead that then organizes and is supposed to sort of get everything together. But guess what? You still have a job to do, and you still have things that your facility is requiring you to do, and you still have a season to put out, and you don't have time to wrangle or to basically herd the cats, to get everybody together, to figure out what dates are available, to figure out how this is all going to work. And so there's nobody managing the listservs that we all put ourselves on. Okay, they're just agents put blocking opportunities up there. People barely talk about it in most cases, unless it's an active consortium, and everything just falls by the wayside. And then presenters lose because they end up paying more per show than they should. Artists lose because then their routes aren't as long. They fly out for a shorter period of time, which makes their expenses higher, and then it doesn't end up adding up as well as it should. So in my mind, there needs to be somebody inside of the state consortium that is what I would call a block booking concierge, which is their sole job is to get data on every single venue that happens inside of the consortium that's paying to be a part of it, that wants to be a part of the block booking process. They find out their wants and needs year to year, 6 months to 6 months, whatever their schedule is, and they present them with opportunities to route shows. And by matching these people up, they can get all the data that they need. Everything from who do you not want to partner with on routes because you feel their radius is an issue? Who do you want to route with because you think that you align? They can take in all of this data and then basically create routes themselves. And they're in charge of basically being what I would call in the business world a setter, which basically doesn't necessarily discuss about it's like when you get if you're a business and you get an incoming call, you want to qualify that call. You want to qualify whether that person is a good fit for your services. And if they don't have the money for it, or they have a wild idea about it, they're not the right fit. The idea of the concierge is that they are doing that work for you. So they are presenting opportunities for you to do that. That's the general sketch. I actually believe that this could be done at a very affordable rate for state consortiums. I believe that this could be, in the beginning, a part-time job, 20 to 25 hours a week. And I also believe that this position should be incentive-driven, which means the majority of their income based off of this entire thing is actually presenting completed blocks. And how they would make money, the majority of their money, at least in my mind, is by motivating them to create these blocks. You then have somebody, basically all entities that are taking part in the block, pay a percentage or a particular dollar amount back to the block person. Now, whether that's filtered through the state consortium or whether it's directly to them, however that works, but there's somebody that their job and how they get paid is to do this. And so that's my idea. Shoot me down. Give me all the thoughts. I'm ready for it. That's an exclusive right here on the No Business Like podcast.
Woohoo! All right.
So I'm not. This isn't shooting it down, but I think that it could be a regional thing more than just a state consortium thing.
Love that.
Because, like, for me, my routing, the majority of my routing comes from Missouri, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and every once in a while from Illinois.
I love that. That's even better, to be quite honest.
So it's more of a regional picture than it is just a state picture.
So my question is, what's the obstacle that's keeping it from happening?
Money. So
But I just solved the money. I just solved literally 90% of the money.
I mean, if you're getting
so I will say, as a former president of a statewide consortium that is an all-volunteer board and has a very, very tiny budget, the idea of bringing on an employee that then I have to manage as a volunteer president and a volunteer board, where this is like a very, very tiny part of my day-to-day work life. I mean, probably took up more time for me than needed because I was completely rebuilding the Michigan Presenters Network. But in general, state consortiums, there's some really big ones out there. There are some that are formalized with paid staff, but a majority of them are volunteer boards and have very few resources, right? We take in dues so we can put on an annual conference and do some professional development. That's it. So it's pretty bare bones in terms of operation. I love this idea. I think we have talked about this idea before in terms of like having a board member or a part-time staff or somebody regional like Josh is talking about, be that linchpin, because you really do need someone to put it all together and push it forward. But it's how do you fund it and who manages that person? And it would take some time to massage that and really make it a reality. But like, I'm here for it.
Yeah, commission sales jobs exist in every other sector of any other industry. So this is really no different. If we figure out what it costs to put together a route as it pertains to what we can pay them, let's make it super simple real quick. Let's say there was a 5-day route and everybody plus the agent or the artist all paid them back $100 or $150 or $200 for the entire route. If it's $200, that's $1,000 back into that person's pocket for producing the opportunity. You times that by the amount of institutions that exist. This is a very lucrative commission deal. So, and all you're doing is giving them incentive to play set and make it happen at absolutely no cost in this particular model to the consortium or the group of states that are around. So again, it doesn't take any of the actual presenter's time, aside from saying, yes, I'm interested or no, I'm not. It doesn't take any of the state consortium's money if it's a full commission model. And the agents benefit because they're not scrambling trying to connect people as much as they usually do with their routed tours. I see it as a potential win-win-win, but you just have to have somebody that has sales experience that knows how to connect people. And so that's going to be, and is the position, because it's commission, going to be something that's a high turnover position potentially until you find the right person that makes a whole bunch of money from this. And then they're like, okay, I'm doing all right. But everybody has to be okay with the idea that somebody's going to make money off of this.
I think this is a great opportunity for somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset to take this on as their own project that then has an agreement with this state consortium, this state consortium, this state consortium, and this state consortium, to where they are working off of that model for themselves, off the commission model for themselves. Their own growth and their own success is solely on their own. Like, this is essentially it could serve as like an intermediary agency,
right,
that solely focuses on creating blocks. It's not that far away from the community concert series model, but it's taking it into a new time that you're not working with volunteer boards and providing them things. You're working with actual organizations that have actual budgets that are functioning, that are buying acts regularly. You're just making it easier for them to buy acts.
Right.
Barron, from an artist perspective, do you block, like, what is the routing, touring, blocking experience like for you? And do you, from the artist side, see a need for someone like Jacob's talking about to really coordinate that?
From my perspective, I always want more shows. So if it results in more shows, then yes. As far as routing is relatively a non-issue for me because I don't have a backline. I have merch. That's all I have, and I can fly with that depending on how many concerts I have. So it's not uncommon for me to do one-offs all the time. So it's less of a, as at least as a soloist. When I play with trio, then it becomes a little bit more. But I'm removed from that process since I have representation. So it's just a matter of, is it easier for me to get shows? If yes, then awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Danielle, what are you thinking?
Well, so like if this is an episode of Shark Tank, like this is the point where like I'm out. But mostly because
Danielle's coming in and shutting it down.
what I think a lot of this is getting
This is
back to
wonderful.
is
Yeah.
that change is hard, right? Like things changing is hard. And the way that where the money goes, like if you're trying to sell a new idea within an organization, where the money goes is gonna be a linchpin and a problem. And I can already hear the question of, well, so we're not paying the agent. No. We're going to send a check to the agent, to the artist, and to the intermediary. And like
Right.
now, the paperwork that we've got to do on like one concert has gone from, or one show has gone from like 8 things to now it's 12, and multiply that out.
But you also didn't spend any time, like you literally got presented with a route and it saved you multiple emails, multiple hours trying to figure out whether you could do all those things. So it is a trade. But also I understand what you're saying.
But then it creates a money trail of like, okay, so why are we paying this person to do the thing that you do? And also like being the child of somebody who got checks from multiple different places. And I mean, you guys see this, like for one engagement, now I got to chase down 3 different checks. I mean, you're going to spend a ton of time just, trying to make sure you're caught up with everybody. And maybe Katie can send you a check once the thing's done. I can't. I'm not sending you a check until the artist is walked off stage plus 30 days. Right. And we might have done this deal 2 years ago. And you're somebody with an entrepreneur set. Like we all know. So I think that there's a theory and there's an idea in how it works.
Well, and there's also, this isn't that far off from like a corporate entity bringing in a booker to book a show for them.
Right. It feels very similar.
That's a one-off, and they're paying the booker, and then they're paying the agent and the artist.
To like a promoter.
I mean, it's already set up.
So is this person like the agent for the presenters? And then like, does that make us a little bit more similar than we want to be to Live Nation?
No.
I don't.
That's not how Live Nation functions anymore.
Well, and I don't think that was the right example. But like one of these more like conglomerate groups is kind of sucking maybe some stuff out of the performing arts market in general.
I don't think so at all, because those are predatory, and this is not predatory in any way.
I don't know that it would create enough efficiency.
But I think there's a germ of an idea there, and I think that's something that we need to absolutely.
And
it is an idea, but I will say this: nothing's getting
promoters
done.
do this all the time. Promoters will reach out to an artist and say, "I'm going to take 6 dates," and then they find the places to slot them in.
Yep.
But they do that. They do it as a rental or as a co-pro in those dates. And so, like, what I'm saying is, there's a corporate structure here.
Yes.
From a commercial standpoint that already exists. That is proof of concept of this. It's just not done in the nonprofit world, in the educational world, in the university world, where we're struggling for resources all the time.
Right.
And there are promoters that are doing this purely for profit at this point, for their own profit, whereas somebody could get a commission doing the same sort of thing and it be beneficial to the nonprofits. They just have to be open-minded to changing this box in which they are operating.
And I think that's where my second thing went to, which I know I don't know how far we are with time, but that's where it comes down to. I feel like where we are in the industry now is that we need real 21st century ideas to solve real 21st century problems. And what I'm seeing is that everybody's too taxed, doesn't have enough time, barely has enough time to show up at a consortium gathering, is willing to basically pay full price for the sake of paying full price for shows. And this definitely helps check, this idea definitely helps check a few boxes to trying to get freeing up time for people to start making innovative ideas for the arts industry, because everybody's time is taxed. Nobody has time anymore. Everybody has time to do what they need, and then they go home, and that's like basically it. And that's been the mentality of the community, and for my entire length of time in here, is that I got to book my season. I got to get it done by this time. If I get to work with you or not, I don't know. I don't care. I got to get this done. I got to pay for it. I got to move on.
And then as far as the intermediary, like if they're creating a block that's going to save you $2,000 to $5,000 on a show, and you're paying them $500 to do it, there's an immediate return on investment there.
Yep.
Well, and also not every solution would work for every venue either, right? And that doesn't mean that it's not a solution, right? As we build like everything that we need to build into the future, like we have to have learned that lesson, right? Like that's how we create equity literally everywhere.
It's not quite closing time at the bar yet, but we do have to wrap up. And off mic, I think we're going to go on to our second drink of the day. So Before we leave, I want to ask our guests and my co-host if you have any words of encouragement or affirmation for the field, because things are a little dark out there, and we've had a lot of fun chatting here today and want to send good vibes out into the world. So anybody got anything you want to say to our friends out there?
Just lead with love right now. In this time, lead with love. Let everything else follow that.
I like that.
I mean, can you say anything better than that? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of great. I'm gonna stand behind that one.
As do I. I third it.
I forget where I was the other day, but somebody reminded me in a totally different setting that kids are watching. Our kids are watching. Kids we don't know are watching, and the way that we show up is how we create our seat at the table and the world that we want to be, even if we're not currently living in that world, because those that are growing up, they're looking at us all the time.
Friends, thanks again for joining us here on There's No Business Like. Thanks to Jacob and Barron for joining us today. It was great to share space once again with you, and we'll see you on the flip side.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends. What stops me from going to sleep at night is the foxes that like to try and make baby foxes on my carport. And if you've never heard foxes, it's not a good sound.
Foxes making
good.
foxes.
It is not good.
I used to
another thing.
I had two cats that tried to do that under my porch for a long time. I have to go out there with a broom. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Not on my porch.
All right. I think we need to wrap. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yep. Jacob, you throw down the beat. Barron, you're on lyrics.